Hey, everyone. Welcome in. It is a Friday edition of the Utopia Football Podcast. I'm Sean Pendergast, one half of Payne and Pendergast with Sports Radio 610, and fresh off the practice field, just left practice moments ago, and scurried home to get this episode out and this practice report for you. This will be a quick one today. The Texans did practice in what was at times a downpour out there at the Methodist Training Center. The fans were still, I guess it's my first big takeaway before we get to the actual football part of this. The fans were still packing the stands out there. And this was a morning where it was raining all morning. I drive to the stadium about 5:15 and get there at about 5:30 every morning. So Seth and I can go on the air at 6 a.m. We do the show live from training camp, even though there's nobody there. So, and there have been fans out there on the days that fans have been allowed out there, which has been Tuesday, Wednesday, and today so far. There have been fans out there, tons of them, when I get there at 5:30 in the morning. They were out there again today, and there were people literally standing out in the rain, like deluge, like downpour rain, just to get in to see practice. I saw a lot of them when we got done at 8 a.m., and a lot of them are coming in because the gates open at 8 a.m. These people all look like soaked dogs, and they don't care, man. They're excited to be out there watching the Texans, and the practices, they're always lively. Today was a little sloppy. D'Amico Ryan said as much following the practice. These were not conditions that were conducive to having a real crisp practice out there today. Didn't mean the energy wasn't good. The energy was good. There was another skirmish again today at practice. If you recall, at Wednesday's practice, we had the dust up that initially started with Stephon Diggs and Jimmy Ward, that eventually turned into Derek Stingley Jr. cheap-shotting Dalton Schultz, which I'm assuming that beef has been squashed. I'm assuming that they left that on the field on Wednesday, and that's not luggage that either of them are carrying around with them moving forward. But there was another skirmish today. It was Ben Skowronek and Tooley, the linebacker, last name Tooley. Cody Stutes is in love with this guy. This Tooley guy. So I had to give Cody Stutes some grief. He's picking on my Notre Dame guy, Skowronek. What the hell's going on? So it didn't turn into anybody cheap-shotting anybody like Stingley did last time. But just goes to show there is a high energy level at these practices. And D'Amico Ryan's, I thought D'Amico would be kind of a fan of the chippiness. He seems to like the chippiness when it happens on the field during the regular season. Remember that time that CJ went up and got in the face of that Broncos linebacker, that Singleton guy? D'Amico's like, yeah, I love it. I don't know if he likes it as much when it's his own guys beating up his own guys, is the sense I got in the press conference after practice. But at any rate, high energy level, but a very sloppy practice, sloppy conditions, sloppy offense, a lot of pre-snap penalties on the offense today. Kenyon Green at one point was forced to take a lap around the entire practice field because he jumped. He false started multiple times. So I guess that's the kangaroo court, is you got to take a lap. Now, I will say this, Kenyon Green looked a lot better taking a lap this year than he would have either of the previous 2 years. He's slimmed down, so it didn't look like the lap was a big issue for him. I feel like the previous version of Kenyon Green would have had to stop a couple times along the way on that lap. This version of Kenyon Green, he's damn near a marathon runner compared to what he used to be. So, but I say all that to say that the offense was pretty sloppy today. Some drops, some pre-snap penalties. Nothing was super crisp. There were some plays that we'll get into a little later on in the practice notes. There's always going to be encouraging plays out there as long as CJ Stroud is the quarterback and these three guys, Diggs, Collins, Dell, are the wide receivers. There's always going to be a few plays in practice where you're like, okay, they're going to have a hard time. Other teams are going to have a hard time checking these guys. But overall, rainy, sloppy practice today. But I was amazed at just the crowd and the energy out there, even in the bad conditions like this. And it was cool to see the Texans choose to practice outside in these conditions in front of the fans as opposed to staying in the bubble. I get nervous about practicing in the rain and on wet turf and whatnot because that's when you get slippage and knees and things like that. But to me, it's safer to practice on wet grass than it is on dry, whatever the fuck it is with all the little tire pellets and stuff like that. I hate the field turf. So they did practice outside. It was sloppy. If you're going out there tomorrow, I believe is another fan practice, the Saturday practice. So if you're headed out there tomorrow, we're supposed to get rain it feels like we're going to get rain for all weekend long or all week long or whatever. It's been nice. It's kept the temperatures down. So these rookies have yet to experience a real training camp practice because the temperatures have been pretty much, the high has been like 84. And today it was in the mid 70s because of all the rain. So that's been kind of nice, actually. I'll take rainstorms early in the day if it means it keeps the temperature down. So I'll get into the notes in a second. I just in watching some of the skill positions today, I am going to be most fascinated to see eventually what the cuts look like at the offensive skill positions, because there is going to be at least one position where I think they're a little heavier than normal in terms of number of bodies, and they're going to have to pull from somewhere else. And I don't know how that's going to work itself out. But I think you look at wide receiver, running back, and tight end right now, and there's going to be some interesting decisions to make. Normally, most teams, I think, carry no more than 6 wide receivers, usually 5, no more than 6. Typically, running back, it's usually like at most 4 running backs plus a fullback. But to me, typically a fullback plus 3 running backs. I think there's going to be some really interesting decisions to make. And then tight end, I've seen Texan teams that have carried 4 tight ends before. But again, you carry 4 tight ends. Typically, you're not carrying 6 or 7 wide receivers or 5 running backs. So Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans, I think, have done a really good job, Nick in particular, because he's the GM, of stockpiling the back end of these positions of the depth chart with what's going to be some very, very tough cuts. I think wide receiver, there's 3 locks. There's Dell, there's Diggs, there's Nico Collins. I think Mechie is about as close to a lock as you can get. And again, today was a day where John Mechie back on the practice field and looked very, very good, especially in one-on-one drills. So I think Mechie makes the team. That's 4. So between Noah Brown, who had 250-plus yard games for this team last year, Robert Woods, who's a veteran that they signed last year to provide leadership and a reliable third down option, Xavier Hutchinson, who did some good things his rookie year, and Ben Skoranek, who they actually traded for. It was a low-level trade, but there was a purposefulness in going and getting Ben Skoranek. And I'll throw Steven Sims in there too, because he's their best return guy if they're not going to put Tank Dell out there on returns. So if we take Mechie and the big 3 as locks, I just named 5 guys right there. Like, to me, at most, 3 of them are making the team. And Nick Caserio has said all along, anytime we've asked him about wide receiver, he has gone out of his way to say they're going to be good players that get cut. If I had to guess right now, I think Noah Brown, if he's healthy, makes the team. He's clearly a good, solid NFL wide receiver. He's just got to stay healthy. And then I think Skoranek makes this team. Boy, Skoranek made some plays today, and not just the chippiness with which he was going after old Thule there. Skoranek made a wow catch at one point in this 11-on-11 today from Tim Boyle. I mean, he laid out for a ball, and it was a great catch. And I think Skoranek's got a little bit of versatility baked into his game where you can run him out of the backfield. You can put him at various different places in the route tree. So I think Skoranek makes the team. Noah Brown makes the team. That's 6 right there. So you're going to be cutting Robert Woods, Xavier Hutchinson, Steven Sims. All 3 of those guys are at least 2 of them. And so this roster wide receiver is a long way from where it was a couple of years ago in a good way. As far as running back goes, I think Joe Mixon makes the team. Again, I should mention Mixon back at practice today, but not practicing today in a hoodie and shorts. But during things like install, when they were doing team install, like of the offensive and defensive side of the ball, installing game plan in the playbook, he was there observing and with his teammates and conversing and so forth. He looked to be moving okay. I had mentioned on this podcast earlier in the week that I saw Mixon after practice a week ago, last Friday, rubbing his right quad pretty feverishly. And so if I had to guess, purely a guess, but if I had to guess what's been keeping him out, if that meant anything, it would be some sort of soft tissue leg injury. But he looked to be moving okay today. He was back at practice. As far as the running back position goes, Mixon is a lock. I think Dameon Pierce is a lock, although I'm anxious to see what it looks like against an actual opponent and not just a padded thud practice. And then after that, man, there's some really interesting stuff. There's going to be a fullback, and that's either going to be Troy Hairston or Andrew Beck, who hasn't gotten on the field yet. Andrew Beck has yet to practice. He's still on the PUP list. So Hairston's got the inside track on that right now. Hairston, of course, missed all of last season with an injury. Beck did some good things last year. There were some things he could have done better. That's got to be a battle right now. If Beck can't get on the field, then it's Hairston's job right now. But as far as, let's pretend they're taking a fullback, and let's go maximum and say they take 4 running backs. I think Mixon, I think Pierce, Daria Gumbawale is getting run with the ones right now, and he is a special teams guy and an emergency kicker. I think Daria makes the team, which means that 4th spot, if there is one, again, you're overloading a little bit if you take 4, comes down to veteran Cam Akers, 6th-round pick Jawar Jordan, who looked really good in practice on Wednesday this week. British Brooks, number 44, if you're out of practice, looks like there's some pop to his game. He's an undrafted guy. J.J. Taylor is an undrafted guy out of Arizona State. Very compact and short, but kind of a spark plug type of guy. Number 38, if you're out of practice, he's done some good things. So there's some tough cuts there too. I don't think as tough as the wide receiver cuts. You're talking about undrafted guys and late round picks getting cut. That's fairly normal. But still, I think some guys who have flashed, and I think, I think it will certainly give Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryan something to think about. And then tight end, it's pretty simple. They've got 4 tight ends in camp. Dalton Schultz, who's obviously a lock to be the starter. Brevin Jordan, who got high praise from D'Amico Ryans today in D'Amico's press conference. Cade Stover, who is a 4th-round pick that they're in love with. And then Tegan Catoriano, who, when he's been healthy, has done some good things. Do they keep all 4 of those guys? So, you can't keep 4 tight ends and 4 tailbacks and 7 wide receivers. So there's going to be some tough cuts. That's what these next several practices are for. But these are some things. I guess I'm a little early here on this, but these are some names and some positions I think to keep an eye on in the Hall of Fame game and how they get deployed. This is an extra opportunity for a lot of these guys, this Hall of Fame game, because this is an extra preseason game that the Texans and the Bears are getting, and that Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans are getting the benefit of getting actual real evaluation tape on some of these back of the roster guys. As far as notes at practice, I mentioned Joe Mixon back at practice. Laramie Tunsil did not practice today, so Blake Fisher got all the reps with the ones again. It was good. It was bad with Blake Fisher. There were some plays he'd like to have back. It's been the same as it's been at a lot of practices, but you can see steady progression with Blake Fisher. This is phenomenal work that he is getting in. So no Mixon, no Christian Harris, no Laramie Tunsil, no Beck. I may be missing 1 or 2 others, but those are the big ones. John Mechie back at practice today. That was good to see, and he looked really, really good. Kaimi Fairbairn kicked some very long field goals. From where I was standing, I was watching the practice today from the hospitality tent because Odyssey, we had our customers up there today, so I was watching it from up there. From where I was watching the kicking drills, it looked like Kaimi Fairbairn hit a 53-yarder and a 60-yarder in practice. That was good to see. Missed a 36-yarder, but Kaimi looks to be in midseason form. He's looked good. The wide receiver one-on-one drills with the cornerbacks are the most fun thing to watch at practice. If you're going to practice tomorrow or next week or to the night practice on August the 11th, whenever you happen to be going out there, I don't remember them doing one-on-one corner and wide receiver work in the red zone like they were today at previous practices. And I've watched every practice, but maybe I missed it. But this was fun today. And dude, these Texan wide receivers are going to be a problem for other teams. Tank Dell does things that are just not normal. He put a cornerback, I think it was Okudah, Jeff Okudah. He put Okudah on his ass with a juke coming off the line of scrimmage. Like the movement, the lateral movement, the quick twitch movement that Tank Dell has is not human. It's really, really crazy to watch. Especially in a tight space like that. For him to create as much space as he does in tight spaces is remarkable. Nico Collins looked really good in spurts today, and Stephon Diggs has been one of the best players in this camp. So if you're going out to practice, I will say this, Kamari Lassiter had an interception in one of the one-on-ones, kind of wrestled the ball away from Nico Collins down on sort of a fade route. Lassiter continues to impress. So that was about it. I mean, there weren't a ton of wow highlight plays in the 11-on-11 because the conditions just weren't conducive to it. They ran the ball quite a bit down there. They're really looking to install a lot of things in the run game. The last thing I would say, D'Amico Ryans, we mentioned the Hall of Fame game. He said today in his press conference he's still not exactly sure how they're going to deploy the roster. I would be shocked if C.J. Stroud touched the ball in the Hall of Fame game at all, mostly because I don't think Laramie Tunsil will be ready to play a week from now, and I wouldn't put C.J. Stroud out there with a rookie left tackle. It's just not worth it. C.J. could go play week 1 tomorrow. He's ready to go. That's my expert analysis on C.J. Stroud. He's ready to go. So that's about it. I would encourage you. We've got a lot of good folks out there providing coverage on Texans practice who I've been standing around. Cody Stutes does a great job. Landry Locker does a great job. Those are good guys to follow as well. They're watching every single play out there at Texans practice. So we got to practice again tomorrow. We got a Saturday practice, so I will be out there for that. We'll have another episode, so keep tuned this weekend. We will be dropping a practice report for you coming up tomorrow, and I will continue to do written practice reports for the Houston Press. So you can get that at houstonpress.com if you're looking for a little something to read this weekend, or they store all my material and archives there. So if you're looking for a way to go back and with the written word, catch up on what I've seen out of practice throughout training camp, you can do that at houstonpress.com, or go back and listen to some of these or watch some of these old episodes and get you up to speed pretty quickly. But I've hit my goal. My goal is always 15 to 20 minutes for you guys on these practice reports. Nice, easy listen for a commute or a workout or whatever it may be. So this is where I thank Anthony Irwin, my producer, for getting these out to you very, very quickly. And thank all of you for listening. Tell a friend. Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. I really appreciate when you do that. Give it a rating. Give it a review. Tell a friend. Share it. It's all good, man. We're one big happy Texans family heading into the season. So with that said, I will see all of you tomorrow for a practice report on practice number 8 for this training camp. Until then, enjoy your Friday, everybody.